Today we are going to be discussing Chapter 3, Lesson 4, Slope-Intercept Form. The essential question, why are graphs helpful? Vocabulary is y-intercept and slope-intercept form. So let's begin with the real-world link. Football. An interception in football is when a defensive player catches a pass made by an offensive player. In a non-proportional linear relationship, the graph passes through the point 0b, or the y-intercept. The y-intercept of the line is the x-coordinate of the point where the line crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to underline this. The y-intercept of the line is the y-coordinate of the point where the line crosses the y-axis. Complete the steps to derive the equation for a non-proportional linear relationship by using the slope formula. When it says non-proportional linear relationship, that means that our line does not go through the origin 0, 0. So we are going to take the slope formula of y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. As you recall before, the y's are in the numerator because those are the change in y values. That is your rise, which I spell with a y to remind myself that's the change in y values, divided by a run, which is the change in x values. This is represented by the variable m. So again, that's the slope formula. So x1, y1, we write it as 0b, referring to this right here. Then x2, y2 is x comma y, referring to that point down there. So when I match up these values of x1, y1, x2, and y2 into my slope formula, it becomes y minus b divided by x minus 0, which is m. That simplifies down to y minus b divided by x, not 0. So y minus b equals m times x, because what you do is you multiply both sides times x to get the y minus b by itself. Then, from there, you want to add b to both sides. So that makes this next part y equals mx plus b. So y equals mx plus b below has it to where you have your slope, which is represented by your m, and then you have your y-intercept, which is represented by the b. The question, how can you know about an interception in football, help you remember the definition of the y-intercept? So a simple sample answer, in math, a line intersects an axis and a defensive player intercepts the ball from the opposing team. Let's continue. Slope-intercept form of a line. Non-proportional linear relationships can be written in the form y equals mx plus b. This is called the slope-intercept form, when an equation is written in this form, m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So over in the work zone, I'm going to add in y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to draw an arrow to my m, which represents my slope, and b, which is my y-intercept. Examples. Let's look at number 1. State the slope and the y-intercept of the graph of the equation y equals 2/3 x minus 4. If I rewrite the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, and I write the equation from example 1, y equals 2/3 x minus 4. As we've done in the past, there's subtraction, so I'm going to make it into an addition problem by adding, making it into a negative 4. And then I'm going to go in and identify my slope, which my slope is going to be 2/3. And then I'm going to identify my y-intercept, which is b, and that's negative 4. I rewrote these equations, matching them up as such, so that it was easier to identify the slope. So m equals slope, and the slope is 2/3. B is the y-intercept, and that equals negative 4. Got it? Let's do these 3 problems to find out. Letter A, y equals negative 5x plus 3. Well, I'm going to rewrite my slope formula above it. So I'm going to write the slope-intercept form above it. Y equals mx plus b. I'm going to highlight my slope, which is my m, and in this case is negative 5. Then I'm going to highlight my b, which in this case is 3. So for letter A, m equals negative 5, b equals 3. So m represents the slope. So the slope equals negative 5. B is the y-intercept, which is 3. All right, trying letter B. Y equals mx plus b. Well, first I need to change the subtraction to adding a negative. And then I'm going to identify my slope and my y-intercept. So slope is going to be 1/4. My y-intercept is going to be negative 6. So m equals 1/4. So my slope is 1/4. Then my y-intercept, which is represented with b, is negative 6. Moving on to letter C. Y equals mx plus b. You will notice this time I wrote it below the problem. That's also okay. I just am trying to match it up. So in front of the C, my apologies, in front of the X there is a negative. So I'm actually going to put in an imaginary 1 right there, because then that tells me that my slope is going to be a negative 1. And then I want to figure out my y-intercept. My y-intercept is going to be 5. So slope equals negative 1. The y-intercept equals 5. So you'll notice as I was saying that, I didn't say m equals negative 1 and b equals 5. I was using what they refer to. So slope equals negative 1 and y-intercept equals 5. Let's try example 2. Write an equation of a line in slope-intercept form with a slope of -3 and a y-intercept of -4. So off to the left, using my slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. I'm going to take the information over on the right where it says slope is -3. So I know slope is represented with m, so m equals -3. And with y-intercept, which is represented with b, equals -4. I'm going to take this information and I'm going to plug it into my values in the equation above. 3 goes in for m, -4 goes in for b. Y equals -3x plus -4. The last step that you want to do for this problem is to combine this plus negative, which is the same thing as saying positive times a negative, which is going to just become a negative or a minus. So y equals -3x minus 4. That's my final answer. Number 3. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for the graph shown. The y-intercept is 4. From 0, 4, you move down 1 unit and right 2 units to another point on the line. So if we take this point right here, the y-intercept, and I go down 1 to the right 2, that's giving me my slope. If I go down 1, that indicates a negative, and you go to the right 2, that's a positive, your slope is a -1/2. Then it gives us the information the y-intercept is 4. So that means that 4 equals b. So if I have y equals mx plus b, I'm going to fill in my information of -1/2 in for m and 4 in for my b. So this becomes y equals -1/2 x plus 4. Let's continue. Do you got it? Let's do these problems to find out. Letter D. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for the graph shown. Well, first I want to figure out what my y-intercept is. So I have a point plotted right there. So this is for letter D. My y-intercept is going to be at -2. Then for my slope, I want to start at 0, -2, and I want to go up and to the right. So I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I went up 5, and I'm going to go to the right 1, 2, 3. Right 3. So for my slope, I go up 5, and I go right 3. So they're both positive values, so 5/3 is my slope. So when I take my slope formula, y equals mx plus b, I'm going to use slope of 5/3 and a y-intercept of -2. Y equals 5/3 x plus -2. Just like before, I want to make sure that I make this plus negative into a subtraction. So y equals 5/3 x minus 2. That is my slope formula for letter D. Apologies, that is my slope-intercept form for letter D. Let's move on to letter E. Write an equation of the line in slope-intercept form with a slope of 3/4 and a y-intercept of -3. So to the left, I'm going to show this. Y equals mx plus b. It tells me that I have a slope of 3/4, which is m, and a y-intercept of -3, which is my b. So filling that in over to the left, y equals 3/4 x plus -3. Just like the previous problem, I want to get my plus negative. So y equals 3/4 x minus 3. that is now written in slope-intercept form. So interpret the y-intercept. When an equation in slope-intercept form applies to a real-world situation, the slope represents the rate of change and the y-intercept represents the initial value. So let's take a look at example 4. Student council is selling t-shirts during Spirit Week. It costs $20 for the design and $5 to print each shirt. The cost y to print X shirt is given by y equals 5x plus 20. We're going to graph y equals 5x plus 20 using the slope and y-intercept. So I'm going to write slope-intercept form first. Y equals mx plus b. And I'm going to rewrite the equation they give me. Y equals 5x plus 20. I'm going to identify each part. So I know that my slope is 5 and my y-intercept is going to be 20. So if I have my slope of 5, well, that's telling me that I'm going to go up 5. I don't know what direction I'm going to go from there, whether it's left or right, because I don't have a denominator. So I'm going to make 5 into a fraction, 5 divided by 1. Well, the 1 is positive, so I go to the right one. So each time I'm going to go up 5 to the right one. Then we want to identify our y-intercept. So this is written as 0, comma b. So in this case, we have 0, comma 20. So we're going to go and graph 0, comma 20, and then from there we'll go up 5 to the right one. So step 1, identify the y-intercept and slope. Step 2, plot the y-intercept. It is important that you plot the y-intercept first. Then step 3, use your slope to plot at least 2 more points. It's best to draw 2 points it's best to draw a total of 3 points to ensure that you have a straight line. So if I were to go over and graph it, I'm at 0, 20. Then I go up 5 to the right one, up 5 to the right one, and I can keep going until I run out of graph space. But again, when you have enough points, at least the 3, you're good. So then if I connect these, then it makes a straight line. All right, number 5. Interpret the slope and the y-intercept. The slope 5 represents the cost in dollars per t-shirt. The y-intercept 20 is the one-time charge in dollars for the design. So again, we're taking the information from the previous problem, where it's telling us that the slope was 5, and again, that represents the cost in dollars per t-shirt, and then y-intercept is 20, the one-time charge in dollars for the design. Oops. All right, let's see if you got it by doing this problem. A taxi fare y can be determined by the equation y equals 50 hundredths x plus 3 and 50 hundredths, where x is the number of miles traveled. So letter F, graph the equation. Letter G, interpret the slope and the y-intercept. All right, so let's start first by writing our slope-intercept form. y equals mx plus b. Then I'm going to take the equation that they provided to us, y equals 50 hundredths x plus 350. And I'm going to break this down and determine what is my slope and what is my y-intercept. So my slope is 50 hundredths. My y-intercept is 350. So m equals 50 hundredths. I'm actually going to write that as 1/2. So that means I'm going to go up 1 to the right 2. My y-intercept is written as 0, comma b. So in this case, it is 0, comma 350. So step 1 is to graph the y-intercept. Step 1 is to identify the slope and the y-intercept. Step number 2 is to graph the y-intercept. So 0, comma 50, 0. I start at the origin, 0, 0. Then I go up to 350. So that's halfway between the 3 and the 4. Beautiful. And now I want to use my slope of going up 1 to the right 2. So I am going to go up 1 to the right 2, and I'm going to plot that point. So I have 2 points. I want to make a third point just to make sure that I have plenty to ensure I have a straight line. I'm going to go up 1 to the right 2. And then I'm going to draw a line between. So I recommend using a ruler or an index card. I'm using the line tool. So that's letter F. Letter G, interpret the slope and the y-intercept. So this problem is saying that our slope the slope represents the change per mile, which is 50 cents. The y-intercept is a flat fee of $3.50. All right, excellent. Now you're going to go and you're going to try some problems on your own.